Assalamu alaikum, and I would like to share my screen right now. So here is my screen, and I'm going back to my channel. So here is my channel. The name of the channel is Dr. Asmat Linear Algebra Lectures. So today we will be going for our eighth lecture, and it's a very interesting lecture as this lecture is going to discuss one very important notion when we talk about linear algebra, which is A inverse. Now, how to find A inverse? What is the geometric interpretation of the A inverse? And for what type of matrices the A inverse exists? And if it exists, then what happens? And if it does not exist, then what happens? And how it is going to impact the solution? But one thing we need to keep in mind that we today our lecture will be focused on a very special type of matrices. We call them square matrices, like 2 by 2, 3 by 3, 4 by 4, and so on. So it means in the rows and columns are same. Or if I talk in terms of the linear algebra language, then it means that the number of unknowns and the number of equations are same. So if that is a situation now, then today's lecture will be of interest to you. So this is the focus of the lecture. It is strictly about uh, square matrices. So we will talk later about non-square matrices, but it's really interesting to see how the square matrices behave when we are looking for the solution of linear equations and linear system Ax equal to B. Okay, so I will be going over the, first of all, the definition of the square matrices. So here is, I'm going to the Wikipedia and I'm just going to look into the definition. So here is the definition. If you have a n by n square matrix, so let me highlight it so you can see what I'm talking about. So if you have an n by n square matrix, then that matrix is called invertible, or we can have some other names like non-singular or non-degenerate if there exists another n by n square matrix such that if you multiply these two matrices in whatever order you like you can do A into B or B into A, and if you end up with an identity matrix of the same order as that of A and B. So you have two square matrices, A and B, and if you multiply them uh, and you get and you end up with an identity matrix, then basically that means that these two matrices are invertible to each other. So it means one of them is A inverse and the other is A. And which one is A inverse and which one is A, it is entirely up to you, because here the order doesn't matter. So for example, if you have a product of AB equal to identity, then I am justified in calling A as an A inverse and B as A. But if you have first B and then A, so if you have BA and that product is also equal to identity, so that means that I can call B as my A and A as A inverse. So it means A inverse could be on the left side or A inverse could be on the right side. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the product of these two matrices, the A and A inverse, should end up in identity matrix at the end. So if that is the case, then we call the one of them in this product, one of the matrices is called A inverse of the other matrix, which is taking part in this multiplication. So this is basically the definition that we will look into. Also, a square matrix could be invertible and could be singular or degenerate. A square matrix is singular if and only if its determinant is zero. Here is a new terminology that comes in front of us. Determinant. So whenever we talk about A inverse, it has a closely related cousin, in the house whose name is determinant. So A inverse and determinant are kind of related terminology. So I can't say, let's say A inverse, and I can't escape from talking about determinant. And if I'm talking about determinants, then invariably the A inverse will come to mind. So keep those two terms in your mind, A inverse and determinant. So if the determinant of a matrix is 0, then it means that that particular square matrix is singular. It does not have A inverse. And you will see also from the formula that we will derive, because the determinant will become in the formula 1 over determinant. So when you have a 1 over determinant, and since determinant is a scalar value, so scalar value cannot be 0 if it is in the denominator. So in that way, it is undefined. So it means that A inverse does not exist for all those matrices whose determinant is 0. So if the determinant is non-zero, it means it could be a positive determinant, it could be a negative determinant. In both cases, A inverse exists. But keep in mind, determinant is also defined for square matrices. So the determinant is there. So this is how it has been. So now I will just, okay, everybody. So we were talking about A inverse, and we said that A inverse is closely related with the determinant. Now I will look into, first of all, a simple 2 by 2 matrix, and we will see. So I took a small video from Khan Academy. It has an A which consists of 2 by 2 matrix, 3, 5 in the first row, minus 7, 2 in the second row, and we are going to find an A inverse for it. And as you will see that the formula that we already know about it actually it is something like this. So 1 over the determinant of A and adjoint of A. So as you can see that determinant of A is in the denominator. So when you are finding A inverse, it is very important that the determinant of A should not be 0, because anything which comes in the denominator is not acceptable. It is undefined in terms of mathematical language. So we don't have an answer for it when you say that anything divided by 0. I'm not talking about 0 by 0, but I'm saying if there is some scalar non-zero is on the top and there is a 0 comes out on the bottom, then we cannot proceed with the calculation anymore. So we have to avoid this at any cost if you wanted to move forward. It's kind of like a barrier um, in our mathematical manipulation. So here is that determinant comes in the denominator. So we have to make sure that if you want to use this formula, we have to write in provided that the determinant of A is not 0. So let us assume that the determinant of A is not 0. So how it is going to impact. So now let's find the determinant of a matrix to make sure that this particular matrix has determinant. So in order to find determinant, we have to take the product of the diagonal elements 3 into 2 and subtract them from this, what we call them the right diagonal and the left diagonal. So there is another diagonal that we have to go from this end, which is minus 7 times 5. But this diagonal product has to be subtracted from this left diagonal 3 into 2. So this is 3 into 2. There is a negative sign, and we have to subtract it from the product of this minus 7 into 5. This whole formula and computation will provide us with a scalar value for determinant of A. So now we are going to get determinant of A, and I will just stop for a while and then adjoint. And now what is adjoint of A. Adjoint of A means that you have to change the values position. So the position of these elements is changed. 3 comes down and 2 goes up. So this is 2 comma 3. And on that side, this other diagonal, we have to change the sign of these elements. We will not change their position, but we will change the sign of them. So this is like a kind of a mechanical activity that you have to perform to find the adjoint of a matrix. So you have a -5 and 7. So 5 was has had a positive sign, so now it become a negative sign, and -7 had a negative sign to become positive. So you change the sign of these two, and you change the places of these two. So now we got the adjoint, and now here is our whole product, and we get it. So this is 1 over 41. So it comes out to be 6 plus 35, and it becomes 1 over 41. And these are the 4 elements: 2, -5, 7, 3. And that this 1 over 41 will go over and multiply with each elements of this matrix. So if you have a scalar values in front of a matrix, then this scalar value has to be multiplied with each element of that matrix. So now if you look into this, so the stuff is 2 by 41 minus 5 by 41, 7 by 41, 3 by. So this particular 2 by 2 matrix is called the inverse of our original matrix A. So that is how this 2 by 2 inverse matrices are computed, and we are quite familiar with it. So I will just go back, and now I will look into a case of what you call them a 3 by 3 matrix. So let's look into this 3 by 3 matrix. There is a slight deviation. When we go for 3 by 3, we usually don't take that approach of 1 over determinant of A and then multiply this 1 over determinant of A with the adjoint of A. Rather, we use what we learned last time, Gauss-Jordan elimination method, where we take the matrix A and augment it with its own identity matrix. So if it is a 3 by 3 matrix, then they use I sub 3. I sub 3 means a 3 by 3 identity matrix. So I sub 4 will means a 4 by 4 identity matrix. So we have to do this augmentation. And then during this augmentation, we will do row operations on this augmented matrix such that at the end, we reach to a situation where this A become now I3, and whatever happens to I3, this will constitute our A inverse. So this is how we tackle most of the time this 3 by 3 matrix inversion process. But I'm not saying that the one that we just saw for 2 by 2 inverse matrix computational approach cannot be adopted. However, I just want to give you another flavor that sometimes it's a bit easier to do it in this way. So if you go ahead and look at an A matrix 1, 2, -1, first row, -2, 0, 1, second row, 1, -1, 0, third row. So it's a 3 by 3 square matrix. As I told you, this lecture is about square matrices today. So when you have a square matrices, we can talk about A inverse, we can talk about determinants. So here it is. So now we have a 3 by 3 matrix, and our aim is to compute A inverse. So if you go ahead and put it as an augmented matrix, you see, now we have created an augmented matrix where we put this A and we put this bar, vertical bar in the middle, and then we throw this identity matrix right here. So now this whole thing is called an augmented matrix. And we are going to do these row operations, R1 minus R3, and we will try to eliminate this -2 and make it 0. We will try to eliminate this also 0. We will try to bring here 1, and then we will try to make this 0. So all those operations we discussed last time. So I will just go over it, and you can see what is going on. So then we will do 2R plus R2 and those operations. So you can watch this video on YouTube more closely. Then we do 3R2 minus 4R3. And then we do R1 plus R3
And as you can see now, we are getting in a better position, because now we have one appearing, and then zero zeros are appearing down. So kind of we are going toward identity matrix, because we have to make this part identity matrix. We don't care about this one. We will just get this tag along. So we will be processing the whole matrix, but we are not bothered by what happens to the other side of the vertical bar. We're only concerned with the left side of the vertical bar. So now you have 1, 0, 0, and I will try to remove this 2 and eliminate it and degenerate it to 0. This one we will convert it into 1, and this is already 0, so it's a good thing. Now, and also we would like to bring 0 here. It's already 0 there, so good part. So this, we have to make this matrix as an identity matrix. So and we are going to do this now. And here we are doing it. 2R1 minus R2. And now, as you can see, we are almost there. So then to make this part, this is 200, to make it 100, we divide 1/2 with R1, and when divide with the second one, R2, with 1/4. So you can see now we reach a situation where the left hand side become 1 0 0 0 1 0 0 0 1. So this is indeed an I sub 3. So this is an identity matrix with the order 3 by 3. On the right hand side, whatever we get, if you remember, initially we have an identity on this side. Now this identity is being transformed into this matrix 1 1 2 1 1 1 2 3 4. So once this side becomes identity matrix, the other side becomes A inverse. So that is how we usually do A inverse for 3 by 3 matrices. So here it is. So you have, and now in order to check whether your answer is correct, you have to take a matrix and multiply it with this A inverse and make sure that this is equal to identity matrix, because I shown you in the beginning a Wikipedia page where the definition of the A inverse is that if you take the A inverse and multiply it with the A, whatever way you like you can take A inverse in the beginning and then multiply with the A, or you can take A in first and then A inverse. In both cases, the resultant matrix that you will get will also be of the same order, and it should be identity matrix. If this is the case, then you can declare that out of this product, one is A inverse and the other one is A. Which one is A, which one is A? It's all up to your convenience, but definitely one of them is A inverse and the other one is A in this product, if the product came out to be equal to an identity matrix. So that was the case where we were trying to go into the computational aspect of A inverse for square matrices. Now let's go into geometric aspect. What we mean when we say we find A inverse, and what we mean when we say that we have to deal with the determinant. So let's look into this little bit more into geometrical aspects. So let us say we have this 2 by 2 matrix, 2x plus 2y equal to -4, 1x plus 3y equal to -1. So we have a square matrix condition, because this is Ax equal to B, in which the A coefficient matrix is 2 by 2. We have two unknowns and two linear equations. And now we are going to look at its geometrical interpretation. So if you look into it, I can very clearly write this whole system of linear equation into this format: Ax equal to B. So now you have a coefficient matrix, and these numbers comes from the coefficients of our linear system. This 2 is coming from this 2, this 2 is coming from here, from the coefficient of y. Then the next equation, the coefficient of x is 1, and the coefficient of y is 3. And now I put these unknowns here, x, y, and equal sign, and then I have these constants, which we call b, and in this case, he is calling it b, so it doesn't matter. But keep in mind that this is a vector, x and v is also a vector, but A is a matrix. So when we look at the geometrical interpretation of this equation, what we are saying is that when you do a times x, basically what you're doing, you're taking this vector, and as I told you, it's a position vector, and this a will transform this vector, which is called x. And how it will transform? It will basically either elongate it or compress it, and also it will try to move its direction. But keep in mind, the tail end will always be fixed to the origin of the coordinate system. And then, so when a is multiplied with x, at the end, this x will move under this transformation, which is defined by a, and it will become like v. So this is how it is. And when you are doing A inverse, basically what we mean is that A inverse is also a transformation, a linear transformation, which is going to move this -4 and 1, this vector, and bring us back to our original vector, which was xy. So in this way, that is how we find xy, because in our case, xy are unknowns. So we need A inverse. So when we do A inverse, we take our answer in this equation, which is V or B, and we bring it back to X. And the moment we bring it back to X, we find the unknown values X and Y. So in order to solve this, we need A inverse. And A inverse is also, again, a transformation, but this is an inverse transformation that brings B or V back to X instead of X going on top of V. So it's like X transforming into V is A, and V transforming into X is A inverse. So now let's look into it in a geometrical way. So here it is. And you can see that now he is talking about A times X equal to V. I will just stop it when he will go to the geometric. So now you can see very clearly. So if you see that whenever we talk about vectors, we have to make, because in this case, these vectors are two-dimensional vectors because these have two components, X and Y. So we are in a two-dimensional space, which we call them XY space. So you have an X and you have a Y, okay? And if you make a grid line, so you can find out that there are grid lines and all the lines are parallel to each other. So I will just try to be little bit so I will go back so that I can stop this particular video. And now here it is. So here is your XY grid. So keep in mind, this is the origin where my cursor is. And this is the grid that represents a two-dimensional space, X and Y. So we have a grid, and with this grid, the lines are, each grid line is parallel. So this line is parallel to this one, the other lines, and there are horizontal parallel lines and vertical parallel lines. So that's how we make the grid. Now, when we apply linear transformation, what happens? We are trying to do something to the grid lines. But during this operation that we do on the grid line has to remain parallel to each other if it is a linear transformation, and the origin will remain the origin. So if it is a non-linear transformation, the origin will move and the grid lines will not remain parallel to each other. So keep in mind that linear transformation will keep the origin as it is and the grid line will remain parallel. But they will be transformed, they will be rotated, they will become smaller in distance, but still they will remain parallel and the origin will remain the origin. So origin will not be disturbed and the parallelness of the lines, the grid lines will remain the same, because we are talking about linear transformation. So every matrix, square matrix, you can think of it as a linear transformation. So now as you can see, once you multiply the A, what happens? You see, when A is multiplied, your grid lines moves. Now you can see that grid lines are inclined at an angle. All the grid lines now are moved. And under this movement, your x vector, which was originally placed in the original grid line, a nice grid line, horizontal, vertical, will move in this new, will transform itself according to this new grid lines. And once it transforms itself to become part of this new grid system, it will become V. Now you can see that. Now it can also happen that you have a 2D grid lines, and once you apply the transformation, it completely loses this two-dimensional and become a one-dimensional, like a line. Still, your origin is at the same position, and your grid lines all are squashed and become like on the straight line. Now once this happens, it means your determinant is zero, because once your determinant is zero, your transformation is taking your vector, which was a 2D, and in some way it will make it as a 1D vector. So it means that in this case, the determinant is zero. So once your determinant is not zero, it means that your 2D will, under the transformation, will remain as 2D. So that's a very nice way of looking at why when we say that determinant is zero, we can't have A inverse. It means that you cannot have a 2D transformation that will bring you back from 1D to 2D. If your transformation takes a 2D vector into a new 2D vector, there is a chance that you can come back using A inverse. But if you have a 2D vector and the transformation has brought him down to 1D, then we cannot find an inverse transformation that will take this 1D into a 2D. So if you have a lower dimension, you cannot go to a higher dimension, but there is a chance you can go from higher to lower dimension. But this inverse will be lost in the way. So how it is lost? It's lost because the determinant is zero. So when you have a zero determinant, your dimensionality become reduced under the transformation. Now I will go more specifically into what is a determinant. And the determinant actually is the area of that, what you call them, the basic cell in that grid line. So let me go over it a bit more. So now you can see here that what I mean. So if your determinant is not zero, you will get your grid lines will be rotated. But under these rotations, you will find out that you still have this basic cell, fundamental cell, and it has some area. But if all the grid lines become squashed into just one straight line, this area will become zero. So once the area becomes zero, it tells you that the determinant of that matrix is zero. So if the determinant is zero, we will end up from a 2D grid to just this 1D grid. We don't call it grid at that time, we call it just a line. Now, if you are lucky, and if your vector, which is your B vector, if it lies on that line, then there is a chance that you will get a solution, but you will never have A inverse. So it means that even if you don't have A inverse, still you can have a solution, because the solution actually depends on something which we will later on see is called column space. So if your B is inside the column space, then there is a chance that you will get a solution, but your A inverse is lost. A inverse will only exist if under the transformation, your 2D grid remains 2D grid, although that grid is tilted, rotated, becomes compressed or elongated, but it will remain 2D grid. Then there is a chance that you will find A inverse. So, but if the squash thing happens, so now you can see, you still have an A inverse in this case, because although you have rotated further those grid lines, still you have that area available. So now you see the x goes to v, and the v become x. You see this? So in other words, what happens is that we can relate and associate our 2 by 2 matrix with a linear transformation. Similarly, we can also associate A inverse with another linear transformation. But keep in mind, this linear transformation that is associated with A inverse will try to bring him back to its original position. So I hope this geometrical interpretation will give you some insight into how we look into the formula of A inverse and how to relate determinant with the A inverse. So I will end up my lecture here. If you have any question, please send me your comments on YouTube and or in the Google Class. And thank you very much for watching this video. And I will see you in the next video. Okay, take care. Bye-bye.